2023 was a wild year for JavaScript, but what about 2024? Kind of feels like things slowed down. In many ways, that's great. Like we didn't get a whole bunch of new APIs in things like React and Next.js, but in others, it's not so great. With AI taking over, it's more important than ever to stay on top of things and be as productive as possible in your roles. So switching tools all the time might not be the best move, but at least keeping track of what's going on, that much I can almost guarantee is worth it. There's a lot of things in here that are worth understanding, knowing about, and maybe even spending some time learning. Before we can get to those, we need to hear quickly from today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is CodeRabbit, and I could tell you all about them, or I could just show what it's like working with them because it's been great. This is an actual pull request in our actual open source repos for upload thing. CodeRabbit's a bot that will leave really useful comments, insights, summaries, and everything you might want in your pull requests directly on GitHub. It summarized this PR up top, so it told us here by updating the description what this change is, where we're adding documentation for how to use our SDK and how to generate keys in other languages, including some that we're not very familiar with, like PHP. You can tell we're not that familiar with it because down here it left a review, an actual line-by-line review, and it noticed that in here we have hash string as camel case, even though this function in PHP would have been using underscores. This is not great. Thankfully, it caught it, and not only does it catch these mistakes so you can go fix them, they'll even do a code commit suggestion that you can one-click commit, and you can see even a great engineer like Julius just does that because it's easier. It's super convenient. And if you don't agree, you can even reply to the bot in line. Here's an example where Julius didn't agree with the bot. It said that we should hard code the alphabet even though other languages are using the library's default alphabets. And Julius said that's because the Go SDK doesn't export the default alphabet as a constant, which they now understand, and they're not going to do it anymore. Cool. How nice is it that this is like an actual code reviewer that is potentially really insightful and can help you solve your problems, summarize the pull requests, and just make getting through code review significantly easier. I've enjoyed using it a lot, and you might too. It's free for open source, and it's only $12 a month for the base subscription, and you get a whole month free if you use my code, Theo1mfree. Thank you, CodeRabbit, for sponsoring today's video. Check them out at soydev.link/CodeRabbit. The state of JS 2024. Let's take a second to consider something. 2024's top 3 front-end frameworks were all launched over a decade ago. That's pretty nuts. Now, sure, all 3 have evolved a lot along the way, and the patterns of 2014 would seem downright antiquated today. Decorators all over our components, hawks, and all the... God, we were in such a mess at that time. It made me think I would never like front-end, and now you guys know me as the front-end guy, which is so funny, because back in 2014, I hated JavaScript and front-end. Hell, even like 2018, I still did. I only got into this stuff in 2019. I'm still relatively new in the JS world. My history is all backend. But given the JS ecosystem's reputation is constantly churning whirlwind of change, it can be nice to know some things do remain constant. Not consts. Consts don't remain constant. Everything else, though, yeah. Speaking of constants, Vite and Vitest are still topping every chart and leading the charge for a newer, simpler generation of tooling. Yeah, the stuff going on there is awesome. I can't wait to talk more about it. They've also added a new metadata appendix that will tell you more about survey respondents and the survey itself. Don't forget, you can also apply any of the variables to other charts using the query builder. That's really cool. Shout out to all the partners who sponsor this, by the way. Having these surveys is so important, and everyone helping with the translations and whatnot, you're all legends. Also, I wear the HTML version of this shirt all the time, and every time I wear it, people ask me what it is and where I got it because they want it so bad. It's just the shirt from the state of surveys. You could buy it on the HTML survey or the JS survey if you want one. It's beautiful. Anyways, we'll blast through demographics quick. Decent percentage, 15% of the respondents were US. Everything else is spread relatively wide. The median age is slightly younger than the previous surveys, state of CSS and HTML. Age and income are positively correlated. If you're older, you make more money. Wow, 43% are between 30 and 39. This actually lines up relatively well with my YouTube demographics. Years of experience. It's kind of funny to think that in terms of JS, I would be here, but in terms of dev, I'm here. Versus yearly income, people who are over 30 years make less than people who are 25 to 29 years. It's very interesting seeing how these ranges split and spread. So since the highest earners don't really have a big jump between the different year levels, other than like 5 to 9. Very interesting. Keep working, you'll make more money later. The company size one's always fascinating to me to see how similar everything is up until like 50 people. Hell, even up to 100 people, it's all like within margin for error. Then 100 to 1,000 is a huge bucket, then 1,000 plus is another huge bucket. Very interesting. The yearly income split, interesting to see the median around here being in the 40 to 60K range. Job title's also a really fun one. I've always been interested to see how these are split. I'll never forget the advice I got early in my career when I was switching over to more front end. I was about to change my title to front end developer, and one of my managers was really concerned I was short selling myself and was going to hurt my long-term career by doing that. Thankfully, that never went through because I ended up getting flogged by Twitch. Long story, don't feel like talking about it. Interesting to see the split here in terms of salary to title. Cool to have that. This one's fun because everyone loves to say you don't need a degree. Only 25% of people even doing the surveys don't have one. And if you look at the salary ranges, while yes, you can roughly make the same amount of money in the top percentiles, regardless of if you have a degree or not, the median is much higher. You'll make significantly more money on average if you just finish your degree. Worth considering. Gender, better ratio than I would have expected, honestly, thanks to their renewed outreach efforts. Awesome to see. God, I'm scared to see the income split by gender. That makes me feel better, actually. I was scared that was going to be a worse thing. To see the range being roughly the same, that's huge. Features. Syntax features. Okay, so what does this vote for? The question was, which of these syntax features have you used? 85% of devs have now used nullish coalescing. That's awesome. 70% have used dynamic import. More than I would have expected. Cool to see. Private fields at 45% is a lot higher than I would have guessed. Logical assignment, hanging out at the 44 range. Hashbang grammar. I mean, I've used this. I just didn't know that was considered like a syntax feature. Then error.cause. This I should use more. String features. Only 76% have used replace all. I think string.replace is the most unintuitive behavior ever, that it only replaces the first one. The fact there's a separate all sucks. Pumped that people are using it, but I'm surprised it's only 76%. I use it like all the time, especially advent of code. I don't know if I could do advent of code without replace all. I hate regex, guys, okay? Two sorted, yes. For those who don't know, if I have an array, const demo equals 4321, const sorted equals demo.sort, sorted is 1, 2, 3, 4, but so is demo. It returns a reference to itself while also modifying itself. I hate that. If we do this again, but this time const sorted 2 equals demo2.to sorted. Sorted 2 is sorted, but demo2 is not because we're creating a new array that is sorted now. It should have always worked like this. I hate mutability for those who don't know. Yeah, find last took long enough. To reverse, to splice, same deal. With the twos, it creates a new array. It would have been nice to see higher than 40%. I think this should have been the default behavior, but here we are. Yes, all settled, catching up. I've been pushing this for a while. Promise.all is almost never what you want to use. All settled is what you're looking for most of the time. If you don't know why, in promise.all, if one promise fails, it cancels all the others. All settled waits for all of the promises to finish before giving you a result. Huge change. Set features. I feel like I'm the only one who actively uses sets. I see them so rarely in other people's code. It's such a good feature to just have a set of keys that are all unique so you can check if something exists or not, but also the ability to like union them and intersect them. It's so cool that we have all these set functions now. It's a shame no one ever uses them. Group by I have not used. Okay, this is actually really cool. You can create a new object that makes separate keys based on a function. That's nice. I would actually see myself, this might be really useful for advent of code shit now I think about it too. That's cool. Oh, look at that. Harrington snuck in with a TanStack shout out. Super excited about the future of TanStack. Browser APIs. We got WebSockets, of course. Who doesn't love a good WebSocket here and there? PWAs at 49%. Higher than I would have expected. Is there a button to compare to last year somewhere? So it'd be nice to see how that's comparing. Because I would guess it's going down. Yeah, PWAs they feel dead to me. I haven't used one in a very long time. The geolocation API, 35. How are 35% of devs using your location? That feels not real. There are more devs using your location via the browser than there are using WebGL by almost 2x. That's terrifying. WebRTC is also really low. How is geolocation twice as popular as WebRTC? More than twice. That's weird to me. Temporal will ship someday. Fingers crossed. Language pain points, static typing, 32%. Browser support, 8%. Can I just put Safari here instead? I feel like that's more accurate. Not too much there. Oh, I swear I didn't pre-read. Just funny that, yeah, we all feel the same. Also, I saw somebody in chat say the fact that maps and sets don't serialize well makes you hate using them. For maps, I can totally hear that. For sets, A set's just an array with a guaranteed uniqueness clause. Just throw it in an array and transform it on each side. It's basically free to do that. And also, yeah, super JSON helps a ton with those things. But I agree. It's weird that those different things that you can store in the browser, like the different data structures, aren't JSON compliant. It's kind of annoying that objects and arrays are the only things that really are. But sets are still good. I use them a lot. Interesting. Error.cause was the most saved. That makes sense. I remember saving that because I was excited to look into it more. Let's talk about libraries. I was going to ask, is React still considered a library? It is, but so is Next, and I wouldn't consider Next a lib myself. Okay, that's experience. Let's switch to sentiment. Webpack's 18% positive, 47% neutral, and 35% negative. That sounds about right. React's almost 50% positive. That's good to see. It hasn't plummeted too far. 30% neutral, 20% negative. Veet's still just slaughtering here with like so little negative sentiment. Jest's at the 35, 50, and 15. Sounds about right. Next's negative is growing a little faster than I would have liked to see. Still crushing Webpack. Actually, no, these are very close. React and Next are similar in negative, but there's a lot more neutral here. I'd expect that to keep closing in and for the next positive and negative to keep growing. The reality here, and I've talked about this a bunch, there's a fundamental difference between tools that people picked because they want to use them versus tools that are so popular that you show up at the job and they're already being used. And when you combine that with the complexity of the tool, you get a really interesting function for how people feel about it. If you have a tool that's primarily used by people who picked it on small teams where everyone on the team is part of the decision, or it's just a solo dev, and the API surface area for that thing is simple enough, you'll almost always have really high sentiment. But then once you get to a certain threshold where more and more places are using the tool, more and more devs are touching it. And the crazy thing with something like React, the average React dev didn't choose to use React. They're using it because it's what the people around them were using. It's what the project they were assigned to had on it. That causes React to have an inherently worse sentiment because the people working on it, on average, didn't pick it. And if you didn't choose the thing, you're so much less likely to enjoy it, especially if that thing is complex. And that's why I think Next is going to start getting horrible numbers here, because you see how close Next and React are for the number of people who answered. Next is becoming the way that businesses use React. If you're a company and you picked React because it's the industry standard and you can move relatively quick with it, Next is probably going to follow up really soon after, which means more and more devs who are using Next aren't using it because they want to. They're using it because it's the thing that the people around them are using, which means the sentiment's going to be worse, especially because it's changing a whole bunch. If you didn't want to learn it in the first place, and now it's changing, you're just getting more and more frustrated because you just spent a year learning this thing you don't like, and now it's changing on you again. It's so frustrating for these devs, and I fully sympathize. But as tools get more popular, that is inherently going to happen. What's important is to make sure we have good enough education materials to keep people on board and keep building the enthusiastic support from the people on the left side here so that they can help their coworkers come around to these things. Like I used to be on the right side here. I used to hate React when I first tried it. And then hooks happened and I started using it more. And I ended up very far on the positive side, to the point where people call me a React shill now. That happens when tools get to a certain threshold of popularity. But if you take the time, it can still be good. And I commend React and Next for not letting the size of the framework keep them from innovating. Angular made that mistake, and now Angular is walking it back and starting to make changes again because they realized how far they'd fallen because they were scared to change things for that core base. Let's keep going, though. Storybook has more respondents and more positive sentiment than I would have expected. I've had nothing but pain with Storybook. It has only ever gotten in my way, and it's also terrible for testing components. If you use it for like keeping track of your UI library, like you have your company's equivalent of Material UI and you want something to look through, it's nice for that. Otherwise, please don't use it. Views at a similar number of votes to React, which is interesting. But 17% negative, 42 positive. React's 20 negative, 47 positive. Interesting that React has both more positive and negative sentiment than Vue. But the negative isn't as big of a gap as I would have thought. I know a lot of Vue devs feel burned by Vue 3. They're wrong. Vue 3 was a great release. Regardless, nothing's going to compare to these Angular numbers. 40% negative, 23% positive. Whew. ES Build's doing well here, 30 to 8. Mocha's dying. Anything else really interesting in these? Cordova, 30% negative, 5% positive. Ionic, 30% negative, 11% positive. Jesus Christ. All those like turn your website into an app tools are fucking terrible and all dying. SvelteKit's split here is actually a little scary. I know, again, there's like a lot of SvelteKit devs that feel burned because there was a huge API change when they had their like major like gold release and you had to manually update your old project and people were upset. But that split hurts to see. I would have also, I'm guessing a lot of SvelteKit devs feel forced to use SvelteKit because they were Svelte devs, but they might have liked it because it wasn't one of these big frameworks. And now that it is, they're upset. Makes sense. There's a lot of things in SvelteKit that I genuinely really like. So it's sad to see the sentiment here. Yeah. Turbo repos an almost even split. I can't believe monorepos aren't a solved problem. It's totally solvable. Oh, I didn't expect that. Remix is a 50-50 split on positive negative now. Okay. Interesting. Biome is more negative than positive. Also very unexpected. Solid's climbing up there with the negative numbers too at 20%. What happened there? Wait, TS up is more negative than positive? What? TS up has saved my freaking life. I guess for the average dev, you shouldn't have to worry about the bundling of your libraries. And if you're concerned about TS up, it's absolutely one of those tools like you didn't pick TS up. You have a problem and TS up's the only solution for it, which is how that ends up there. But Jesus Christ. HTMX 25 negative. Fuck. This is a very useful chart for me, seeing what people do and don't actually end up enjoying. Changes over time. This is one of my favorite charts here. So to just front-end frameworks. This is interesting, seeing the like, oh yeah, I misread this. It starts bottom right with 2016, positive opinions, neutral usage. But you can see exactly what I'm describing here with this actually. As React's usage went up, it hit a point where it was no longer being used by people who like it. It's just being used, period. And you go up and then you go left. That's the pattern. And that's what happened to React here, where the sentiment's been drifting to the left because it got too high. That's how it happens. Vue's having a slight positive swing right now, which is cool to see. But like, it's still so neutral in terms of the amount of usage that it's hard to tell. Like in the front end one, React's the only thing that's consistently broken over this like 50-50 line. Also, seeing Solid drifting left is sad. Yeah, it's like all of these frameworks are drifting left right now, if you haven't noticed. Angular is the only one that moved right because it was already so far to the left and they've actually made awesome changes this year. Yeah, Svelte having a negative swing is sad. These are all pretty sad. How about meta frameworks? Next, again, you go up and then you go left. Gatsby had a slight swing to the right. I don't know how. It's so dead. SvelteKit's swing left. Even Astro is starting to swing left here. It's terrifying. Mobile and desktop. Everything is low usage and most of it's going to the left. God, we just hate our tools right now, don't we? Build tools, Webpack, drifting far left. Veet's even going left now. Veet's been nothing but up to the right. Seeing them drifting left here is unexpected. Did literally everything sentiment get more negative this year? Other than Angular? Is there anything that was on the right side here that was positive that continued going right? Maybe in testing? Nope. Yeah, literally everything is moving left. We're getting more negative. Did Expo? Okay, Expo went to the right more. Expo's great. That makes sense. If you're building a React Native app and you're not using Expo, you're screwed. But like, this honestly is changing my tune. I don't think all these tools got worse this year. I think front-end devs are getting more negative. I think we just are getting frustrated and complaining about the tools more. And this negative sentiment is being shown right here. I almost wish there was like an everything option where it bundled it all into one number and showed how much less positive we are overall, because that's how this feels. And it sucks because like I feel like these frameworks and tools are doing the things that these loud, frustrated people asked. Like the Next.js 14 release had no new APIs added, and 15 had one added with the use cache stuff, but it removes like 5 others, and it's optional, and it's under an experimental flag, and nobody's using it yet. I don't even see people talking about it. So this is, on one hand, they're saying that everything's changing too much. That's why they're mad. And then we have a year like this year where nothing changed and they're even madder. I don't know what we can do about this. The library tier list. Everyone loves their tier lists. Vite and Vitest are still really high up. Playwright's killing it. Playwright's really good. Astro at that 94% mark. Still lower than it was, but still really good overall. PNPM holding strong up here. But we just saw SvelteKit's really negative right now. How is it there if the negative numbers were what we just saw? Does it explain how this? by the retention ratio. Okay, so ones who would use it again versus ones who won't. That makes sense. It's still weird how negative SvelteKit was, but yeah, Svelte fell down a tier. TurboRepo leading the pack of the B tier. That feels about right. I almost feel like Turbo is going to start being like a bad word, because if you're in a project that has TurboRepo set up correctly, 99% of the people in that project won't even know that Turbo is a thing. So the only reason you know about TurboRepo is because either you configured it or because it's broken. And if you've configured TurboRepo yourself, or you've had to fix it after someone else configured it, you don't like it. In TurboPack, it just hasn't shipped yet. Like, you can use it. I use it in dev mode for Next.js, but it's barely a thing at this point still. Retention versus usage. Is there a way to like actually see the names of things in this? Can I just... This chart would be actually really useful if you could see things without having to hover over all of them. Like, can I just pick front-end frameworks and hide the rest? Spell's got really high retention. Vue's got pretty high retention. Actually, both those are really high. Trying to find solid. There you go, Ryan. Here's your number. You had 1,116 people say they're using solid, and 90% of them said they're going to continue. So your numbers here are nuts. You would have been A tier or S tier if you had hit slightly higher numbers of usage. So yeah, for those curious, solid's an S tier framework. Yeah, then we have everything here is effectively dead. So be careful of Selenium, Cordova, Gatsby, Lerna. God, Lerna. Ionic, WebDriver IO, NWJS, Task Cafe, Rush, and NativeScript. That sounds about right. I'd be careful of everything here. Stencil's right on the line. Angular's online, but it's doing better, so I wouldn't be quite as hesitant. Weird to see Vue slightly ahead of Angular for users, but significantly higher for sentiment and retention. Have we not just been talking about front-end frameworks this entire time? Okay, let's go here. Here's usage across all the frameworks. Yes, I love the rank chart. This is my favorite. And we can see Vue overtook Angular last year and has maintained its lead. Did anything change here? Nothing changed. Again, 2024 is like a no-op in JS land. Nothing swapped between 2023 and 2024 for the ranks. Astro got written in enough, but not enough to be included here. jQuery, rip. Used at work. Again, this is the thing I've been talking about the whole time. Like, the frameworks that you're using at work, if the team's, let's say 10 people, one of them had to start the project and pick a framework, they're going to pick React. Maybe they'll pick Vue or Angular if they've been around long enough and they like those. Smaller projects might pick Svelte. I'm excited to see more big companies using it. I've been seeing more unexpected Svelte usage. I know Stake.com, for example. This was funny. I got to tell Rich Harris, because he didn't know, Stake's built on Svelte. I had to be the one to tell him that, which was really rewarding. Yeah, so one of the biggest Svelte users is Stake, and he had no idea. Anyways, yeah, Apple uses Svelte as well for Apple Music. It's not for like all of Apple's products, but Apple Music in the web is also a Svelte app. Yeah, so Svelte is starting to get some more industry usage, but the fact that like I have to remember these specific examples because there's few enough of them says something that's worth paying attention to. But it's growing. It's the first new framework in a decade to get an actual level of adoption where it's worth discussing and being part of the conversation at work. It's cool to see it getting more adoption. I'm actually pumped about that. But again, React is what you use because a coworker picked it and you're now helping maintain the project. Vue is similar, and Angular is too, except the person who picked Angular quit and retired 8 years ago. This is going to be interesting. Yearly income relative to framework. Let's do some hypothesizing here first. It's going to do the range thing, I hope. I think React's going to have a wider middle band, skewed slightly right, just because it's so much more popular in the West. I think Vue's going to skew slightly left of React overall, but it's going to have a really big like outlier for like the top 25% that's close to React's. I think Svelte's going to have a really wide range for the 25%, and the middle's going to be massive because it's such a wide range. Let's see. Yeah, these middle ranges are way more similar than I would have expected. Like seeing React and Solid having nearly the exact same split here is very unexpected. I guess JSX frameworks, like regardless of which JSX you're writing in, you're going to make the same amount of money. Kind of a joke. And Svelte's the exact same as well. That is so strange. Seeing Svelte, Solid, and React with the exact same income breakdown. Vue's far 90th percentile is lower than I expected to. I would have thought Vue would still hit up there. I knew it would skew left slightly overall, but I didn't expect that. It is much more popular in Eastern countries, though, so that kind of makes sense. It still hurts to see, and it makes me sad, but it makes sense. Quick, it's like React, but you make less money. Checks out. And then Preact. I guess if you want to make more money on Reacty patterns, Preact will bump you into a slightly higher group. Interesting. This is a very interesting chart. Seeing lit skewed slightly to the right, but also same exact 90th percentile mark. Like the only thing that is a higher 90th percentile is Preact. Yeah, this is fascinating. Here we have the number of items. How many items this category respondents have used? Oh, this is of all the things that are in the survey, how many of these have you used? So for all the frameworks, most people have used 3 or less, and the number gets real small as you go down. But for heard of it, most have heard of at least 6 of them. Interesting numbers. Wait, I thought we just determined that people are getting more negative. Are we finally actually swinging slightly? Oh, it's just 2.7, 2.8. That's not a real number. I don't care. Good to see we're not going down anymore, because this was my concern before when I did my last video. Framework pain points. React issues are the biggest source of framework pain points. Do they have examples here? React is stupid by default. People are mad about the major changes between React and Svelte. Lack of interesting differentiation from React. React is pain. Memoization needs in React and constant re-rendering are annoying. Manual dependency management for activity. A lot of these are being solved with the compiler. I feel like the things that are solving React's problems don't get talked about as much, like compiler. And the things that are niche that most people shouldn't care about, like the new suspense behaviors, are massive drama. React must die. Fuck off all React users. React is very hard. Excessive complexity. Too much complexity, complicated features. Checks out. Angular issues is lower, but Angular usage is lower too. That makes sense. Meta frameworks. Time to see how pissed people are at Next. Again, like when I say this thing, like the thing being used regularly is going to be more negative. I hope you understand how much more Next gets used than the other things. Over half the respondents have used Next. So Next is significantly higher in usage. Awareness things are a lot closer. So it's not like people don't know about these other options. They're just not using them. Nothing is even at half of Next's usage. Obviously, people are going to be madder at Next. That's just like the numbers work out that way. And again, with the rank, Next has been number 1 nonstop. It looks like Astro is climbing fast. Oh shit, yeah. Astro climbed from like 6th place in 2022 to 2nd place. Gatsby died. Remix, that's Nux actually. Nux hasn't moved. Remix, that's FeltKit. Remix is all the way down here now in the 6 range. Jesus Christ. Docusaurus losing to Remix. That's sad because Docusaurus had a really good year. Still probably, if I had to pick something right now for new docs, I'd probably lean into Docusaurus still. I'm pumped for Astro. This is insane growth. Just like understand the size of the gap here. Like for Astro to get closer to Next and to eventually overtake Next, it has to double its current usage. More than that. Double would be 46 and Next is at 54. That's a large gap to bridge. You can't just snap your fingers and suddenly get there. Like it's even at its current growth rate, which slowed down, by the way. It doubled from 2022 to 2023, and it only increased by about 1/5 since. What about other meta frameworks? Analog, by the way, if you're not familiar with Analog, I don't know if Angular would be making improvements right now if it wasn't for the work that Brandon Roberts put into Analog. It's like their Next.js, and it's still the best way to do backend stuff in Angular by a lot. And I know Brandon Roberts has worked his butt off making it as good as it is. We got 11T in here as well. A bunch of others. Tanstack routers doing better. Excited to see Tanstack start next year and how many people start moving. Use network. Again, the size of this gap, I need you guys to understand the next biggest at work full stack meta framework is less than half of Next's usage. It's almost 1/3. That's crazy. If you're looking to make money as a full stack dev, Next is the option. And I'm sure when we look at the yearly income, I was thinking a bigger spread here, but look at the numbers on the side here though. 10,000 people responded and 5,100 said Next. 1,400 said Astro. The second biggest full stack framework to Next.js isn't Nuxt, it's No Framework. No Framework is the second biggest. Insanity. Company size, this will be fun. Interesting that the company size spread doesn't seem as different as I would have expected. Docusaurus is the only thing where that middle percentile, 75th, spreads to 1,000 because big companies are using it. Interesting. Oh shit, Sama. Fucking love Sama. Oh shit, video and Rive animations with WebGL shaders. That's cool. Visualization tool for live music gigs. I'm scared it's going to make sound, enter without sound. Thank you for making that option for me. Okay, yeah, this is stunning. I'm saving this to look into more later. As always, Salma makes crazy recommendations. Number of items. 31% of people haven't used any of these frameworks. As I was saying before, like it's the second biggest full stack framework is no framework, which is kind of crazy. Heard of, slightly better numbers, but like there are more people who haven't heard of any of the full stack frameworks than there are people who are using SvelteKit. It's similar numbers of people using Astro to people who have never heard of any of these tools. Think about that. Think about the gap there, that there are more people who haven't heard about any of these that are doing a JavaScript survey. So they're in the know enough, they're doing a survey, but there's more who don't know about any full stack framework than there are people using Astro. That's crazy. We still have a long ways to go with these meta frameworks and full-time solutions. Again, happiness seems like it's flatlined. Vercel made it into the top 10 framework pain points. That's fun to see. Testing, I don't want to make you guys suffer. We'll just look for the highlights quick. Jest is still really popular. Storybook is still too popular. Playwright is growing fast as it should. Playwright's really good. Number of items, 21% haven't heard of or used any of these tools, and 15% haven't heard of any of them. I'm doing my job. We're killing the test tools. Testing tools happiness, slightly better than it was, but it's back to where it was in 2022. It's like this line isn't moving anymore. I do feel bad for framework authors right now because they're pouring their hearts in, trying to make their tools as good as they can, and it doesn't budge this line. It sucks to have a thing that you can put a ton of effort and energy into and not see a result. Like you'll see the result in terms of like the framework itself has these features it didn't before, but you're not going to see people being happier. Svelte put so much effort into Svelte 5. It is a great release that makes Svelte so much more scalable and ready for real production workflows. And the sentiment went down. It sucks. Mobile and desktop, this will be a fun section. Electron, usage going down. Where's positivity? I need to make my defending Electron video. Yes, Tori's collapsing. Electron and Tori are closer than ever because so many people were psyoped into thinking Tori is this magical solution to all the Electron problems, just to realize it's a solution because it doesn't include any of the things you need and you have to go write them yourself. Tori is a glorified front end for a Rust CLI tool. And if that's what you're doing, if you're building a complex Rust library and you want to expose it with a UI using something competent, Tori's a great way to put a React app on top of your Rust app. It is not a competent replacement for Electron. I'm tired of people pretending it is. That might need a video of its own. Also, 41% of devs in the survey haven't used any of these tools for desktop and mobile apps. So 41% still don't touch desktop or mobile. Surprised how many do, but yeah, it shows you the relevance of these things. Electron and React Native tying for pain points. So over to build tools. Monorepo is going to be a bloodbath. Vite's climbing, but the rate has descended. Sia was jumping so much every year, and now it's slowed down a bit because my hot take is every project that should be using Vite is at this point, and there isn't much left for it to grab because what's left is old things on Webpack that are never going to move because they're bought into so many crazy plugins, and Next.js, which is so deeply built into Webpack that they're rebuilding Webpack is easier than rebuilding Next. So I don't know how much more growth we're going to see for Vite, and I'm scared that means it's going to have the thing where it went up, and now it's going to go left in the sentiment. Surprised Bun didn't make it in, but it's just not quite popular enough yet. Interesting. Same number of people using Vite and Webpack at work. That is very interesting to me. Webpack still pays better. Very interesting. It's also crazy seeing the range here. Like the tool you pick and the salary you make aren't correlated that much. The tool you pick and how easy it is to get your first job, those are probably still correlated. How about company size? I know this case I haven't looked yet. Vite's going to be much smaller companies than Webpack overall. If I'm wrong, I have a lot of thinking to do. These are exactly the same. Interesting. Good to know. I'm going to think hard on that one. Shit. Satya snuck his own thing in here, and it's Blue Sky. Shout out. Thank you, Satya, as always, for the hard work you do. Definitely give him a follow if you want to keep up with these surveys. Thank you, Satya, for all the hard work you put into this every year. Monorepo time. PNPM still winning. NX is doing fine. Turbo Repo's growth is slowed massively. It's so crazy how unsolved monorepos are. It's really rough right now. It's really rough. I'm not going to pretend otherwise because it's the right pattern for so many things, but the tools are garbage. Look, the happiness has not changed ever. That sucks. That's so sad that we've never seen any growth in the happiness of Monorepo tools. What do we have for other tools? Lodash, date functions. I love date functions. I use it so much. And Day.js. I swap between these two more than I probably should. I lean Day.js. I like the API more. I know the moment API is the wrong way or whatever, but I like Day.js. They're both good though. Both great solutions. Someday, Temporal will actually be ready. 3.js come in with a sweep here. Is React 3 Fiber in here, or is it just 3.js? Interesting. And D3 still killing it. Framer Motion still high up. GSAP still doing really well. Spring being this high. Okay, React 3 Fiber would be higher if it was in here because React Spring is by Poimanders and it was originally largely for 3.js and React 3 Fiber. Makes sense. Backend framework still Express dominating. But look at that. That's Nest, not Next. Sorry. That makes me sad, actually. Nest doing twice as well as Fastify is heartbreaking. Fastify is so underrated. If you're starting a new project and you're looking at Express, just consider Fastify. It's basically Express if it wasn't slow as fuck. I use Fastify as my go-to web server for basically everything that is a web server. If it's not Next for me, it's probably on Fastify. Hano is really cool too for things that you're throwing on like Cloudflare and whatnot, because it's much more like runtime agnostic. But Fastify is the fastest and the most node ready by a lot. Hano almost feels like Node is a like second-class citizen. It works fine, but I personally lean Fastify. We use both at Upload Thing, believe it or not. We use both pretty heavily. Fastify lets me do a little bit more and have a bit better performance for long-running servers. JS runtimes. Node wins. Browser's close second. Bun is climbing fast. Bun taking out Deno is huge. Also, Bun being tied with service workers is kind of hilarious. Cloudflare workers is a write-in is at 0.3%. That's because people who use Cloudflare workers, half of them don't even know it's not Node. They just assume and then make mistakes and then get mad. Lambda and Vercel are the top two here. Cloudflare workers is below Vercel Edge. Insane. Cloud Functions by Google is pretty high up too. Seeing Netlify so low is interesting. I'm curious to see if that bumps up because we have some fun things coming. Non-JS languages, we're all stuck in fucking Python because of the AI wave. PHP is coming back. Java never went anywhere. I did not expect to see that many more ChatGPT users than Copilot users. That's kind of nuts. This one's going to be wild to look at next year in comparison. Somebody with a good memory, when we go through this next year, remind me to compare to 2024. I want to see how this shifts around. I'm expecting Claude to go up, Copilot to go up slightly, ChatGPT to stay roughly where it is. And if Google's current Gemini tear continues, could be very interesting. Also, Cursor is slaughtering. Cursor is like the only IDE in here up until, like, it's the only IDE over 10%, which is kind of nuts. We got plenty of other IDEs like Tab9, Codium. Codium is spelt two different ways here, though. Are these? Oh, these are different things. I forgot about that. That there's two Codiums. Whew. Vercel's getting close to AWS for hosting. GitHub is still too high with pages. I mean, it's free, but what? Netlify is beating Cloudflare. That's good to see. Heroku is way too high. Why is Heroku still 19%, boys? Come on. It's time to move off. Sharing the survey on Twitter, Facebook, or by email is scientifically proven to improve your coding performance by up to 15%. What does sharing it in a video get me then? Should be even more, right? Oh, this is the TypeScript JavaScript split. Look at that. TypeScript dominating. Less than 20% of people are under half TS. That's crazy. TypeScript won. And almost all of us are compiling our JS now. AI code gen, still leaning 0%, but a lot of people are saying like 10%. Interesting. Most of us are writing JavaScript professionally. I would like to see more people doing it as a hobby. 40% is low. Like, come on, we got to use it for fun. Front-end dev still 98%, 64% are backend, 26% are mobile, 18% are desktop. All very interesting numbers. Okay, SPAs are still winning, but SSR is growing. We're at 60% of people are doing SSR for their sites now. SSG's at 46%, multi-page apps are at 40%. Partial hydrations, only 20%. Islands is 14%, and it gets lower and lower. ISG is 9%, and streamed SSR is only 9% too. PPR, especially because it's like, considering that this is a next feature, it being at 8% is pretty nuts, especially because it's like under a hidden flag. I'm excited for PPR to become a standard though. This similar to how static revalidation became really common, partial pre-render needs to become common as well. Yeah, also a good point from Ryan. More people are using streamed SSR than are realizing it. Absolutely agree there. It's funny because like Next.js does such a good job of making it so you don't have to know those details. The things just work, but you end up with numbers that look really low here because nobody knows that they're doing it. 35% of people said that code architecture is a pain point for JS. What do you mean? Just put it all in one file. State management at 31%, depths at 29%, build tools at 28%. Where are monorepos? Monorepo should be way higher on this list. New proposals. Everyone's hyped on temporal. People are for some reason hyped about decorators. Yeah. Explicit resource management. Fun stuff going on there. Missing features. People still want static typing even though they have TypeScript. Standard library because we have to use libraries for everything. Signals. People are hyped about. Pipe operator. Give me the pipe operator. I want this so bad. You guys have no idea. No idea at all. It's so good. Someday. I'm going to start polyfilling it at this point. I need it too badly. Not polyfilling, but Babel plugin. Most people want the native types to be as similar to TS as possible. Makes sense. Web tech happiness, again, has not moved 5 years. That's sad. JS happiness went down very, very slightly 2020, 2021, but has not moved since. I think we've just accepted. Like the hive mind has taken over at this point. And now my favorite section, the materials. Video creators. Whew! I never thought I'd see the day I'm that close to Fireship. I'll take it. I didn't even do the video hyping up this survey this year, so to get that high up still is huge. Primogen's close. Also, MeDoDev being here is nuts. As the author called out, it's worth highlighting how vibrant the Spanish language ecosystem has become, with MeDoDev in 4th place overall. Like, how nuts is that to have a Spanish-only, effectively, tech creator be double the next highest English creator? That is huge. Huge shout out to MeDoDev. He's been awesome. And every time I talk to him, I get something crazy from him. Like SVGL, the thing I use for managing all my SVGs for my thumbnails. This tool is by a person from his community that was a huge fan of mine. And the last time I met with MeDoDev, we were just at the Vercel office. He asked me if I would be down to take a selfie with him to send to this one other person. And then he showed me SVGL that they made. I was like, wait, what? That's so useful. And now they're one of my favorite people in the community. Medu just, he cares so much about lifting the people around him and doing whatever he can to support the community he's in. It's unbelievable. Just such a great dude. Yeah, shout out to MeDoDev. Shout out to the SVGL guys. It's primarily Pablo. Killed it. Phenomenal project. I use this almost every day. Kevin Powell's still killing it. I have like 3 of his videos in my queue to watch later. I've been excited to for a minute now. Low level. Look who made it in. Pirate Software is still here, just lower than expected. People. The section for just filling in people's names, Medu, was the name that most people put in. Huge. Awesome to see. And now, the most important part, the awards. Most adopted. I'm not sure what this is going to be. Vite, still? I thought his growth slowed a decent bit. That's what it looked like. Highest retention is Vitest, of course. Once you're on a new test solution, it's not shit. You're not going to move. Highest interest, roll down. For those who don't know, similar to how the Next.js team is rewriting Webpack in order to make it faster with TurboPack, the Vite team is rewriting Rollup, which is the production bundler for Vite, in Rust with roll down, so it's fast enough to be used both for dev and production. Most write-ins, Analog. Woo! Good to see Brendan in here. Totally deserves it. As I've said, Analog is a huge part of why we're seeing the Angular renaissance, and I am pumped to see it getting the recognition it deserves. Most commented, Angular. Still not the newest kid, but it's still the talk of the town with 41 comments coming in about it. And the most loved library, again, Vite, sweeping. The conclusions. Several years ago, another State of JS survey put Astro on my radar. Decided to try it after spending a few hours with it. I fell in love with the tech. It was almost love at first sight. Suddenly, I saw myself rebuilding my website, administrative tools, and other projects with Astro. Now I can say that Astro is my favorite framework by far. JS is a dynamic and exciting ecosystem continually growing with many libraries and frameworks, from reusable components to client-side, server-side, and static solutions. Countless ways to achieve your goals. I like this call out, like go play with new things. I agree. Every time I try something new, it changes how I develop in some way. Even if I don't like the thing, it's beneficial. Thank you, Fernando, for writing this. But I gotta see what my girl Shande had to say. Love her. She's done some of like the coolest React content I've ever seen. Check out her talks if you haven't. Just under 5 years ago, I discovered the advantages of using TypeScript for the first time. I wasn't alone in this journey. I was among many JS devs who were just starting to explore TypeScript and its benefits for teams aiming to create scalable, maintainable front-end systems. It's amazing to see how quickly TypeScript has grown in popularity. Thrilled to see the majority of survey respondents now use TypeScript in their daily work. Today, my go-to stack for both pro work and personal projects contains React, TypeScript, Vite, and Jest. Large and rapidly growing teams have placed their bets on these tools, and they look for expertise in these areas when hiring front-end devs. So it's no surprise to see that they've been widely adopted and retained by other organizations as well. If you're like me, you prefer to focus on mastering a few essential tools rather than continually experimenting with new frameworks and libraries. Also like me, you might even hold off on adopting the latest version of reliable front-end tools until they reach stable releases and any issues are resolved. You're not alone, and there's huge benefits for those of us who prefer the tried and true path. This is a message that's very much not for me, so I shouldn't be as I don't agree with this that much, but it's not for me, so it's fine. The people who are the best at any given tool aren't the ones who only use that tool. They're the ones who use that tool and keep track of everything else going on. So maybe like for the top half of people in a given tool, I would guess the majority mostly use that thing. But the top 10% of people for any of the things we talked about today, they use other shit too. Nobody who's in the top 90th percentile of a thing only uses that thing in the dev world. There's too much to learn from other tools and technologies. I think that's everything. What a survey. I'll admit I'm a little sad. I was hoping this year we would see a bump in the sentiment since things slowed down a bit, and it seemed like the biggest complaint last year was that stuff was moving too quick. Well, we had 2 years where things didn't change a lot because we're too busy rewriting our stuff in Rust. But as a result of those 2 years of less change, we didn't see a positive sentiment boost. We actually saw it go down slightly, as well as frameworks that made big changes like Svelte getting penalized for it too. And it's sad. I don't want to see a web dev world where we're scared of innovation. And I guess that's the one silver lining here. It looks like not innovating doesn't help sentiment either. So on one hand, there's no reason to not keep innovating because people don't care. They're going to be mad either way. But on the other hand, there's not that much incentive to innovate because people don't care. I was hoping for a better survey result this year. I'm hyped about these things, and I hope you guys are too. I know the people who watch these videos are not the average JS dev. I'm just scared of what the future looks like for them. Let me know what you guys think. Until next time, peace nerds.